A dog in Vienna stopped eating the day its owner died, not immediately. 3 days later, when the absence had settled into something the dog's body could no longer explain, it waited by the door for 11 years. The story became famous. The behavior was called loyalty. The science calls it something harder to name. Start with what a dog actually knows about you, not what it senses, what it knows. A dog that has lived with a person for years has built a model of that person more detailed than most humans build of each other. Your cortisol levels change how you smell. The dog tracks that. Your gait shifts when you're tired, when you're sick, when something is wrong before you've said a word. The dog files that. Your heartbeat changes when you're stressed. At distances up to 6 feet, a dog with no training can detect it. Research published in PLOS One confirmed dogs can identify human emotional states through scent alone with accuracy rates above 90%. You are not a face to them. You are a biological signature, a constantly updating file of chemical, acoustic, and behavioral data that the dog has been reading every day of its life with you. When you die, the file doesn't close. It just stops updating. This is where the science gets complicated. Dogs do not have a concept of death the way researchers can currently measure. What they have is a concept of absence. And absence, to an animal whose entire nervous system has been calibrated to one specific human's presence, is a physiological event. Within hours of a significant attachment figure disappearing, cortisol levels in dogs measurably rise. Not slightly. Researchers studying separation responses in dogs have found cortisol spikes comparable to those recorded during acute threat exposure. The body responds to the missing person the way it responds to danger. Because neurologically, that's what disappearance is. Something that was always there is gone. The threat detection system doesn't understand permanent. It understands missing. The behaviors that follow are predictable enough that veterinary behaviorists have documented them as a clinical pattern. Reduced food intake, increased vocalization, whining, howling at irregular intervals, hypervigilance near entry points, doors, windows, anywhere the person used to arrive from, sleep disruption. In some documented cases, a complete cessation of play behavior lasting weeks. A 2016 survey conducted by the ASPCA across 159 dog owners who had lost a companion animal found that 36% of surviving dogs ate less after the loss. 63% showed changes in vocalization patterns, but the study that sharpened the question came later. In 2022, researchers at the University of Milan published findings in scientific reports examining dogs whose owners had died, not relocated, not surrendered. The dog died. The dogs were then rehomed with family members who had known both dog and owner. This was deliberate. It eliminated novelty as a variable. The environment was familiar. The humans were familiar. The single variable was the absence of the owner. The results were specific. Dogs showed increased attention-seeking behavior, increased fear responses, decreased playfulness, and decreased trainability. Trainability matters because it's a measure of cognitive engagement. A dog that is not learning is a dog that has redirected its processing somewhere else. The researchers described the behavioral profile as consistent with grief in humans. They were careful with that framing. The paper used the word grief in quotation marks throughout. The quotation marks are doing real work there. The problem with calling it grief is that grief implies an understanding of what has been lost. And what dogs understand about death, specifically, is still an open question. What the behavioral data shows is that dogs respond to the loss of their primary attachment figure with a syndrome that, if it appeared in a human, would be called grief without hesitation. Whether the internal experience matches the external behavior is something the imaging can't yet reach. What the imaging can reach is structure. Dog brains have a caudate nucleus. So do human brains. In humans, the caudate activates in response to things we love, people we are attached to, rewards we anticipate. In 2012, Emory University neuroscientist Gregory Berns began training dogs to hold still in MRI machines without sedation. What his team found across years of scanning changed the baseline assumption of the field. The dog caudate activates in response to the owner's scent. Not food, not toys. The owner. The activation pattern is statistically indistinguishable from the pattern produced in humans when they see someone they love. Same structure, same activation signature. The dog brain, when processing the person it's attached to, is doing something that looks neurologically identical to human love. That structure still activates when the scent is present, even after the person is gone. This is the detail that researchers find hardest to discuss cleanly. A dog in a house where its owner recently died is still surrounded by that owner's scent. The clothes, the furniture, the specific atmospheric signature of a person who spent years in a space. Each time the dog encounters it, the caudate fires. The attachment system activates. The body prepares for the person to appear, and they don't. The system runs the activation loop again and again. No one has measured how long this continues. Scent degrades over weeks. The activation presumably decreases as the signal fades. But in the transition period, the dog is running its attachment circuitry against a presence that is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Hachiko waited 9 years at Shibuya Station in Tokyo after his owner died in 1925. Every day for 9 years. The story is usually told as devotion. The neuroscience reframes it as something closer to a system that could not find a reason to stop. The owner always arrived at that station. The data said so. 9 years of contradicting data was not enough to override what the attachment system had encoded. That is not stupidity. It is the cost of deep encoding. The question researchers are now asking is whether dogs have any cognitive mechanism for updating permanent absence. The evidence is thin, but emerging. Dogs whose owners die slowly, through illness, with a gradual withdrawal from the dog's daily life, appear to adjust faster behaviorally than dogs whose owners disappear suddenly. This suggests some processing is happening. The system is not entirely rigid. It responds to information, just slowly and incompletely. Stanley Coren, the canine psychologist who has spent decades documenting dog cognition, has argued that dogs have the emotional and cognitive architecture of a 2 to 2.5-year-old human child. A child that age understands absence. It does not understand death. It knows the person is gone. It does not know what gone means permanently. It waits. The dogs that recover fastest, behaviorally, are the ones that form new attachments. The attachment system is not destroyed by loss. It remains active, searching for an anchor. A new person who moves slowly, who is present consistently, who smells like safety, can eventually pull the system's attention. Not replace the previous anchor. Redirect the circuitry. The ones that don't recover are the ones that don't redirect. Veterinary behaviorists have documented cases of dogs that enter a behavioral withdrawal after owner death that persists for years. Reduced engagement, chronic hypervigilance, weight loss that becomes a medical issue. The body maintaining an emergency state long past any adaptive purpose. The honest answer to what happens inside a dog's brain when its owner dies is that the most sophisticated attachment system the animal has ever run encounters a contradiction it wasn't built to solve. The file is complete. The signal is gone. The system keeps checking. The brain that lit up every time you walked through the door is still lighting up for the scent you left behind. Still running the activation. Still waiting for the pattern to complete. It doesn't know you're gone. It knows you're missing. And for a system built the way a dog's is, those two things might never be quite the same.